machine at your house too. The director's
I don't
chair, the
have a
popcorn machine. You're
at
so
my
fancy,
house.
Hannity. You used to be a Long Island kid.
What's
now
the
you're
name
a movie
of
director.
the guy? What's his name? Popcorn.
Exactly.
Orville popcorn. That's what I put that in the microwave like everybody else in America. No special
All right,
popcorn
Hannity.
machine.
All
but
right,
that's a
stop
good
beating
idea.
up my time.
Sorry.
Thanks, Sean.
Have a great show.
I appreciate it. And good evening from Washington. Another Hollywood bombshell. The comedian Louis C.K. has been accused by 5 women of sexual misconduct. The allegations were reported by the New York Times, and now the distributor of his new film, Daddy, I Love You, has abruptly canceled the premiere due to unexpected circumstances. Well, they may be unexpected to his distributor, but for those of us familiar with Louis C.K.'s career, it was totally expected. As with Harvey Weinstein, there were whispers in the media about C.K.'s sexual misdeeds for years. Remember his stand-up routine and tweets about Sarah Palin and her special needs child in 2010? With misogynistic glee, he ridiculed Palin's body parts and her, quote, and I hate reading this, but this is what he said, retard baby. To give you some insight into the depravity of Louis C.K.'s mind, this is one of the cleaner tweets I can read. He said, people think that Sarah Palin is really mean, but she has a family of Chinese poor people living in her hole. Sorry, it got even more vile from there. I can't read anymore. Despite knowing all of this sordid and sick comments Louis had made about Sarah Palin, Jay McMichael, the 2012 chair of the Radio and Television Correspondents Association, invited him to headline the group's dinner. It's this hoity-toity deal in Washington. He defended his decision to invite the comedian, telling Politico, it gives the dinner a bit of an edge. It shakes it up a little, which is what we wanted to do. One of our goals was to make it not so stuffy an evening. Louis C.K. fit the bill when it came to that. Yeah, he fit the bill all right. Greta Van Susteren, then at this network, boycotted the dinner, and she correctly called him out. She called out Louis and called him a pig. Greta wrote on her blog, I refuse to show any support for this guy, and I think the organization that hired him is just as bad as he is. It's no secret that he denigrates women. Within days, Louis dropped out of the dinner. Though the Radio and TV Correspondents Association didn't rescind their invite, he dropped out. Greta was right. Louis C.K. had denigrated women and children for years. The man is a total degenerate. Here's a sample of his sterling work.
There's no worse life available to a human than being a caught child molester. From their point of view, it must be amazing for them to risk so much. How do you think I feel? It's my last show, probably. If somebody said to me, if you eat another mountain sport, you'll go to jail and everybody will hate you, I would stop eating them. Because they do taste delicious, but they don't taste as good as a young boy does and shouldn't.
These days, my problem is very simple. It's trying to find a place in my house where I can masturbate without somebody bothering me. And that's getting really difficult.
He even dresses like a pig. And to discuss the cultural fallout and why Louis C.K. got a pass from the elites for as long as he did, I'm joined here by Raymond Arroyo. He's a lead anchor of EWTN News, and in New York, conservative columnist and best-selling author, old friend of mine, Ann Coulter. Great to see both of you. Ann, let's start with you. Everyone that I know who's familiar with the comedic world knew about Harvey Weinstein, and they knew about this Louis C.K. Is this surprising to you that they covered for him for this long?
That isn't surprising. What is actually the most surprising to me, I almost don't want to point out how many of the creepy sexual predators that are being outed right now are self-righteous liberals, because I mean, I'm more offended at what they've done to women than their politics, but the feminists and all of this, concern for sexual harassment for such a long time has been sort of a single-edged sword. It was something that would only be deployed against conservatives and Republicans. And so I gotta say, I'm really heartened that it's the left going after the left here, and they actually do care about sexual harassment and sexual predation. I mean, this is a lot more than harassment. Rape has been alleged, obviously, in Harvey Weinstein's case. Oh, wow, what a surprise. They actually do care about rape and the dignity of women, because I gotta say, for 20 years, there was very little evidence of that. It seemed to be deployed in a very political way, as, for example, against your boss, Clarence Thomas, which I didn't believe, and the country
think of what they said about
but
him and what's being alleged here. Raymond, I want to talk about the work of these artists, as they're called. The connection between what they produce in the entertainment community and the conduct they're accused of.
Anyone who's seen, even casually, Louis C.K.'s act knows these things are routinely part of the act. Exposing yourself. You heard the bit about child molestation. Why that's funny in any way, I don't know. But this pernicious nastiness, it normalizes this behavior. And the more you hear it, the more people who have this disposition or are perverts hear this and go, oh, well, I'm not alone. This is really cruel. And in this case, we're hearing about these women who've come forward.
Yeah.
He exposed himself to them. He did unspeakable things that I'm not going to get into now. But he only was a pervert and acted and had misdeeds with one or two of these women. But in his work, he was perverted to millions of people.
Let's play this scene.
That's the double sin in my world.
Right. Let's play this scene, Ann and Raymond. This is a rape scene in his show that was on FX for years. Let's watch.
What are you gonna go?
Look, no, it's okay. I just...
Okay. Well, bye now.
Pamela.
No, bye. Bye now.
Pamela. I
Really,
just want to...
I'm really late for not being in here right now.
We're going to play the whole thing. I watched this earlier, Ann. I'm blissfully unaware of the man's performances.
Lucky.
And I never found him funny. I found him to be a slob. He's obviously a leftist. That's not his real sin. But what we just saw, and it goes on and on and on. They're just watching it. It seems the word degenerate really needs to be brought back into the vernacular because it's just a pure degenerate. Pure. We're going to get into the Roy Moore issue as well because there's another allegation from a long time ago. But Ann, when you watch that, and you think of all the things that we see, whether on billboards, in music lyrics, the ho word, the N word, I mean, this is a depravity that crosses almost every cultural product and the entire landscape in different ways. But everyone's like, "Oh, isn't this funny? This is so edgy," as the correspondence chairman of the dinner said.
Yes, I had not seen that scene. It's kind of surprising, and I think the New York Times pointed this out in their article today. It's kind of surprising that it's so on the nose. I mean, he does a lot of him masturbating in these shows. You'd think you'd stay away from that if that's what you're actually doing off camera. But I do find, I mean, between Harvey Weinstein and Louis C.K., this desire to force people to watch you masturbate pointlessly. I mean, other than the Republican Congress, I've never heard of this as being an attractive pursuit in life.
Well, Raymond, there's another clip that we have to play from Barack Obama. And Jon Stewart also. But let's hear from Barack Obama what he thinks of this talent.
I think Louis is terrific.
Oh boy, he just made his life.
No,
he just made his life.
Mean, he's wonderful in such a self-deprecating but edgy kind of way. I mean, and basically good-hearted even when he's saying stuff that's pretty wrong.
Okay, I had not seen that before until today. Raymond, that was after the retard comment about Sarah Palin. He apologized for some of that stuff, but then he said other horrible stuff about Palin.
After the show, with these outrageous scenes where he's inflicting himself upon a woman, talking about the masturbation.
But this is the left. They claim to be for women and children, but women and children are objectified.
But why is this funny?
Why is this funny in any way, shape, or form? And I want to get into the the deal with Roy Moore, because this broke as well today. He's the Senate candidate. He's the, he bested Luther Strange in that Jeff Sessions seat runoff. He is a Christian conservative. He's a firebrand, former Supreme Court judge in Alabama. And now this allegation comes 38, 39 years ago that he had an encounter, a sexual encounter with a 14-year-old girl. He claims this is a hit job. This is, the Clinton machine or someone smearing him. What is your take on this at this point in this story?
Well, I guess I'd like to hear his response more than just that it's fake news. I think we ought to give him 24 or 48 hours to respond and see where it goes. I mean, I'm sort of frustrated all around with that Alabama primary. What was the matter with Mo Brooks?
Oh, that's who I liked.
Yeah, me too. We both
Mo
endorsed him. Yeah, he's been in the House all this time. He's fantastic on immigration, the one issue that matters. Why did it have to be between establishmentarian Luther Strange, who will open borders, or Roy Moore? So I'm frustrated from the beginning on that. As for, if you haven't read the Washington Post article, to the viewers, they will be talking about how there are all these women coming forward. No, there's one. There is one allegation of a woman. I mean, yes, he dated girls who were 17, 19 when he was 30. We might find that a little creepy today, but this was nearly 50 years ago. The one serious allegation is a woman, at the time, she was 14 years old, who claims, actual molestation. And who knows? I'd like to see what his response is. But you can't help thinking about the timing here, Laura.
Yeah,
I mean, he's been big news
he's been
in
out
Alabama.
in the public eye for a long time, man. I mean, and Raymond,
and
I'll let
running
you have
for
the last word on
Senate.
it.
All I would say is he has denied all these allegations so far. If any of them prove to be true, he's got to step aside. Just like
he's going to be on the ticket.
Goodbye.
But he has to step aside, but he
his
can't
name's on the ballot.
because his name's on the ballot, and so they're going to have to just write in someone, right? Or that's
the reason the media loves this story is he's a hypocrite.
Not.
If this is true, he's a hypocrite. In the case of Louis C.K.,
forget
he's just
hypocrite.
confirming
He's a creep.
what they expect.
And what?
I'd say forget hypocrite. He's a creep. And
he's a predator. If it's the truth, he was a predator.
If it's
it was
true,
only one time.
Right.
If it's true, he's a predator.
Who cares about the hypocrisy thing? But also, who cares about what the rules and laws are for when a Republican can replace him? No, I'm sorry. The Democrats replaced Robert Torricelli when he was running for Senate, not because they found out anything new about him. He was the same person he had always been, but because his poll numbers were down. It was past the time they could legally replace him. So no. I think they should, if this turns out to be true, they should replace him with Mo Brooks.
No, well, Mo Brooks. That's a guy I endorsed, and he didn't go anywhere after the runoff. And I appreciate it. Raymond, thank you so much. And still ahead, after 8 years of dismissing it, Democrats are all of a sudden embracing American exceptionalism. We're going to show you the before and after. Welcome back. With President Trump in Asia, we're seeing a shameless and phony embrace of American exceptionalism from the left. And that's tonight's angle. On the occasion of President Trump's Asia trip, those who have spent a lifetime singing from the globalist hymnal are now suddenly American exceptionalists. Those who presided over the decline of America's standing in the world now say Trump is doing this whole foreign policy thing wrong, especially when it comes to China. Here's the president earlier today.
Both the United States and China will have a more prosperous future if we can achieve a level economic playing field. Right now, unfortunately, it is a very one-sided and unfair one. We talk often. There's a very good chemistry between the two of us. I don't blame China. After all, who can blame a country for being able to take advantage of another country for the benefit of its citizens? I give China great credit.
Now, former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright did not like that at all.
He is not the center of everything that happens. I am appalled at the way that this is being presented and the way that the president talks about himself and those who are trying to help him.
Is it dangerous not to have these positions filled, or would it just be better if these positions?
I think it's dangerous.
I do like her brooch. I like that brooch. Oh, Madeline, it's interesting to see you lecture somebody about their conduct abroad. Now, where did you learn your statecraft? Was it from Assad? How about, was it from Putin? Or maybe it was your time with Kim Jong-il. I guess you could call that sycophantic, but I guess that's more aptly described as just plain old diplomacy. What did she want President Trump to do? Take his shoe off and pound the table in the Great Hall? Of course, had President Trump actually used the occasion to really rail against the Chinese, Albright and company would be slamming him for being uncouth and unprofessional, the consummate ugly American. And then Team Obama chimed in. Here's his former ambassador to China, Chris Hill.
Is there a chance that he is kowtowing to the Chinese leader in small part because he's trying to get the big deal in North Korea?
I think to some extent that's what he's looking for. But frankly, that's not how we're going to get Chinese cooperation, by kowtowing to them. We need to explain to the Chinese why this issue is important to us, why the China relationship is important to us, and why we need to work together on this.
Kowtowing? At least he didn't literally bow down like someone else we know. I still love that shot. There's something deliciously ironic about headlines such as this from Slate today. Weak and clueless. Trump is the American president of Chinese dreams. There it is. Think about what happened to the United States vis-a-vis China during Obama's 2 terms in office, just for a second. The trade deficit ballooned every single year. American ideas and technologies were stolen. China built islands for military use in international waters. China expanded their economic footprint from Africa all the way to Argentina and everywhere in between. They poured hundreds of billions of dollars into their army, which is now larger than our army. It's standing army larger than ours. And by the way, their human rights abuses, their religious abuses, they proliferated. So no one who is not overtly anti-Trump would believe for a second that the Chinese think Trump is weaker as an adversary than Obama. Xi knows President Trump does not buy into the whole citizen of the world claptrap of the Bushes and Obamas. He knows that Trump is an unabashed believer in American exceptionalism. And by the way, that's a marked contrast to how President Obama sounded. Remember back at that 2009 NATO summit?
I believe in American exceptionalism, just as I suspect that the Brits believe in British exceptionalism and the Greeks believe in Greek exceptionalism.
I still can't believe that soundbite. And Xi knows that Trump would never prostrate himself and apologize for America either.
The early decisions that we've made, that you're starting to see some restoration of America's standing in the world. There have been times where America's shown arrogance and been dismissive, even derisive. The United States is still working through some of our own darker periods in our history. We've at times been disengaged, and at times we've sought to dictate our terms.
The bottom line is this. A lot of the armchair quarterbacks have needled the president's every move in Asia, from koi ponds to Japanese cars. But before we start taking advice from the people who ran American prestige and power into a ditch, maybe we should consider that Trump is doing something different. He's projecting American power with a lighter touch. And he's actually connected culturally with the Chinese by honoring their history and appreciating their hospitality. Now, that might not be a bad idea. It might not be a bad opening for tough trade and strategic negotiations ahead. We'll see. He's also, in a surprisingly understated way, put down the marker that he will defend the rights of the American people. And he did that in Asia, something everyone should be cheering. And that's the angle. Joining us now with reaction from San Francisco is Arash. He's a national security analyst, and I'm delighted he's with us. All right, Arash, where did I go wrong there? Take me down a peg or two.
Well, Laura, I think the one thing you didn't show was the scene where Trump almost got on his knees, pulled out a ring, and proposed to the Chinese premier. I mean, this guy now for about 2 years has been bashing China. How many times has he said that the Chinese have been raping America? China has raped America. And then today, just like a schoolyard bully who's good at talking smack from a distance, he went to China, he backed down, he buckled down. That was an embarrassment. I was laughing when I saw that, but I was sad on the inside. He's an American president, and that's what he did. That was an act of cowardice, and it's embarrassing. Now he's going to go to another Asian country. I think he's going to Vietnam next, and we're going to see this happen over and over again.
So,
talk
Arash,
smack, but once you get there, back down.
We got the lingo. So, Arash, a question to you. Do you believe that in practice it will turn out that Barack Obama was tougher on China trade than Donald Trump will be? Just speculate for a moment.
I'm not going to speculate. I'm going to talk about facts. Here are the facts. At least Barack Obama did not ship his factories to China. At least Barack Obama didn't make ties and hats and shirts and heels and so on and so
Arash,
forth in China.
He
put his mouth where his money is.
But Arash, we're talking facts.
You don't
I don't
like
want to
facts.
interrupt you, but I want you to stay. I want you to stay on point. Did any of those bullet points that I put in the opening and the angle, the trade deficit went up every year. Of course, China aggressively moved, and this is from Foreign Policy Magazine to Commentary Magazine. This is not Foreign Affairs to Commentary. This is not like a right-wing view. This is a fact. China expanded its economic footprint. It developed its military, its strategic positioning in space weaponry. They stole our intellectual property. They stole 50 million of our personnel files, including mine, yours truly's, from the Office of Personnel Management. They moved on every front during the 8 years of Obama. Now, you can complain. They think Trump was too nice to the Chinese. Last time I checked, y'all were saying Trump was too brash and too in the face of people. But now he's too nice to the Chinese. I don't think you can settle on a narrative, because the narrative of the 8 years of Obama was China in the ascendancy and American economy flat as a pancake. Go ahead.
So let's come back to reality and go down to earth. Here's what happened. Ever since Nixon made that infamous, or famous actually, visit to China, Chinese economy opened up in the 80s, then in the 90s, and China has been on the rise. It's not an Obama thing. It's not a Bush thing. It's not a Reagan thing. It's a fact of life. Having said that, President Trump needs to figure out what he's about to do with Asia, with the Mideast, with these big policy and foreign policy and national security questions. He can't go on Twitter and say one thing and bully people and irritate people, and then when he actually meets these world leaders, cow down and back down and buckle down.
He got $250 billion worth of trade deals secured for major American companies who are going to have significant partnerships in China. That's real American jobs created. That's an increase in U.S. exports.
I believe it when I see it.
Okay, so
I believe it when I see it.
So all of the CEOs who are involved in these deals, are they all lying? Are they all part of the Trump conspiracy?
Hundreds of CEOs. You know what? I know. Let's not paint a picture for your viewers who may not actually follow this on a daily basis. Every time a U.S. president goes on one of these trips, hundreds of CEOs go with him. When Obama went to India or China or Japan or any country for that matter, hundreds and hundreds of American business leaders went there. That's why we got a trade commission and a trade representative. So let's not talk about, Trump is going there and he's bringing all these CEOs as if this is the first time anyone has ever done that. That's not the thing.
So is there anything that you think happened over the last 36 hours in China that was good for America? Anything positive at all? Or the only person who had a handle on China and North Korea, because that worked out so darn well over the last 8 years before Trump, nothing over the last 36 hours was good for you? Nothing.
If Trump's, I'll tell you what's good for me. Trump's behavior, alienating his own Republicans. So when we get an impeachment vote, people like Corker and people like Kyle are going to buckle down and going to vote for impeachment, because they're going to see the man is unstable. And guess what? Countries that were jealous of us, countries that, well, I know you find it funny, but I listened to I listened to your comic relief for 2 minutes. But here's the thing. countries that were jealous of us
Speaking
and
of talking
envied us
smack,
and
go ahead.
feared us now feel sorry for us, and that's the Trump
do
legacy
they?
in less
Do
than a
they?
year.
They prefer Arash.
You know
In
what?
your twisted
you have
world,
one
they
picture.
prefer
You
a
have one.
president to apologize
You have
for
one
America.
picture, Laura. You know what? This is a president that told Bill O'Reilly that Americans have killed as many people as the
Apologize.
Russians have.
Your president,
Trump
who
said
you think
America
that
has
you
blood on
drew
its hands.
America
Trump,
standing in the world,
Trump, your president, your boy
throughout
said
Europe
America has
for our
blood on its
arrogance.
hands. That's not true.
You know what?
That's not true. But your boy said America has blood on its hands. Your
I know
boy.
these are San Francisco values. When the
and we're proud of it. And we're proud of it.
When the
it's a great.
decides,
It's a great. Everything
I love San Francisco.
from the
Don't worry
internet.
about it.
You should love it because from Uber, from every company.
Chill out. You're very
you should
angry
chill
tonight.
out because you make
You're
claims.
very angry.
No. Don't invite a guy and don't cut me off if you think I'm going to wipe the floor. So don't invite me if you're going to cut me off.
Oh, this is the typical tactic of the left.
This is beautiful. I'm enjoying this.
They make points. They don't want points to be countered because they don't like actual speech.
You
don't
keep
like actual
interrupting me.
speech.
You keep.
Okay,
go
Arash,
for it.
Arash.
I'm all ears.
Number one,
I'm all yours.
Okay, number one, I think we can look just objectively over the 8 years under Obama with our relationship with North Korea and China. China did get a lot stronger. China cheated on a lot of trade deals. And President Obama did one thing that I think was actually really good with China. He slapped temporary tariffs on cold-rolled steel, which I gave him a lot of credit for. That was really smart. Trump's going to take that to another degree. And I think that's a smart continuation of smart nationalistic policy. And Obama actually saw that during his time in office. That was a good thing. But, that's like, I can actually say something that he did good vis-a-vis China. But you cannot say anything positive about President Trump, which shows that you are not an unbiased observer on this. You're committed to Trump's impeachment probably since the first minute you were crying over the election results on election night. Now you can have the last word.
Oh, my God. Laura, I've listened to you on the radio, and it's your evolution from a so-called free market capitalist to a nationalist protectionist is baffling. I love the fact, and it's funny that conservatives like you who keep talking about, who at least used to talk about the open market and anti-socialism,
no, I never did.
anti-communism.
I don't know what you're listening to. I never talked about the open market.
Oh, I listened to you for 5 years. You didn't. So you're a nationalist. You're a nationalist protectionist.
No, I
you're
work
a nationalist
for President Reagan. Arash, I work for President Reagan. I don't know what you were doing in 1987, but I worked for him. President Reagan slapped tariffs on Harley Davidson, on the Japanese motorcycles that were flooding our market and saved Harley Davidson. And for that, he was derided by the Cato Institute as a protectionist. President Reagan understood that tariffs were well deployed when appropriate.
Are you a marketeer? Let your viewers know, are you a free and open marketeer or are you a socialist?
This is fascinating for a San Francisco liberal to try to define conservatism, but I won't try to define your twisted version of liberalism.
That's the thing.
But I actually understand that nationalism, when an economic level actually works. And we appreciate it. And still ahead, the first dreamer deported under President Trump gets busted again for trying to illegally enter the U.S. Maybe he's going to San Francisco. And it's proving a big lesson for immigration. We're going to take a break and debate that up next. Well, wouldn't you know it, the first known dreamer to allege that he was wrongly removed from the country by U.S. border agents has gotten himself back into some trouble. 23-year-old Juan Manuel Montes became the face of the pro-DACA movement earlier this year as the first so-called dreamer deported by the country from the Trump administration. Like clockwork, the plight became the stuff of media sob stories.
Why did the Trump administration just deport someone who's been in the country since he was 9?
It's alarming and scary to know that no one is safe anymore. This young person was detained and deported. It's very scary.
Family members say Montes is in Mexico tonight, still hoping he can come home.
Well, it turns out he may not be so innocent. Montes was caught late Monday trying to sneak back into the United States, all the while awaiting the results of a lawsuit he brought to re-enter the country legally. For insight, we turn to someone on the front lines of this never-ending battle. Joining us is Art Del Cueto. He's the vice president of the National Border Patrol Council and a Border Patrol agent. And this is a fascinating story for a lot of reasons. First, he claimed that he was unfairly deported, but it turns out that he left the United States, I guess voluntarily, and then tries to sneak back in Monday and like fell down, and then he ran from Border Patrol agents, and they ran after him. I guess they tackled him. What do you think about situations like this where he becomes the poster child of the Dreamer movement?
I guess if we caught him, we're doing our job, right? I mean, first and foremost. But, you know, I think you have an individual that at some point he's got to face reality and just stop lying. You know, he's been in this country, and I understand people are saying he's been in this country since he was at a very young age, but he was lying the entire time. He lied about being deported the first time by Border Patrol. You know, I've read part of the story, and there's no evidence that he was ever deported the first time. He more than likely left on his own. Then he turns around and he files some type of lawsuit, and then he drops the lawsuit. So, I mean, if he's so correct and he's doing everything right, there's a lot of red flags here. And now he gets caught again, trying to enter the country illegally again. And the bottom line is, Laura, there's got to be consequences. That's what the problem is. There's not enough consequences for individuals that are breaking our laws. There's not enough consequences for the individuals that continuously, you know, thumb the Border Patrol, and, you know, they just false lies and disrespect. And that's the big thing. And that's where it upsets me. You know, as a representative of all these agents, they're out there in the most rough terrain, in rigorous areas. You know, they're by themselves a lot of times. And, you know, they need to start taking care of the agents out there, too.
And Mr.
There's
Del
hundreds
Cueto,
of stories. I mean,
can I ask you just one question? There seems to be a story about attrition among Border Patrol agents, that we're not replacing agents as quickly as they're leaving the force. Why is that? They're failing polygraph tests, I understand. They're going to other law enforcement agencies within the government. But we need these Border Patrol agents. Donald Trump, in his immigration priorities package, said he wants to, double the number almost of Border Patrol agents or more.
Right, and I think that's great to double the number and get more. We're under the congressional mandate. The reality, though, is we need to start taking care of the Border Patrol agents that are working right now. We can hire 5,000 more agents, but if you don't retain the experience from the agents that are there, that's where the issue is. We are working the most rough terrains, like I said before. We get assaulted more. A lot of these assaults on these agents, they go unprosecuted. That's another slap in the face. So, you know, you need to have some kind of pay equity, is what I'm saying. It doesn't help that we can hire 5,000 more agents if we're going to lose 5,000 agents now.
No, it's
that should be the number one priority. The number one priority means you need to take care of the agents now.
Art, among the Border Patrol agents, very quickly here, is the mood, though, better? Do the agents seem to feel a little bit more at ease under President Trump than they did under Obama, or they don't really pay attention to who's president?
No. The agents are definitely paying attention. That's one thing that people need to understand. We have very, very smart Border Patrol agents out there, and they're definitely paying attention. Is the mood better now and the morale better than when it was under Obama? Most definitely. However, we can't stop there. The reality is the morale is not where it should be. And the way you get that morale where it should be is you properly take care of the agents that are working right now. The agents that are constantly out there on that line, putting their lives on the line.
Yeah, and not getting paid a lot in most cases. Art, thank you very much. And also tonight, there's some controversy brewing at the Department of Homeland Security. According to the Washington Post, Elaine Duke, who's the acting Homeland Security Secretary, was set to extend residency permits to over 50,000 Hondurans who are currently living in the United States. Now, this apparently did not sit well with White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, who reportedly called Duke and demanded she expel the Hondurans immediately. Now the Washington Post says Duke felt pressured by political forces and threatened to resign. DHS pushed back on that report earlier today. But regardless, one can't help but feel this case bears a striking similarity to that of Sally Yates, who earlier this year defied the Trump White House as the acting attorney general. To help us make sense of this reported turmoil inside the Department of Homeland Security is Andrew Arthur, the resident fellow in law and policy for the Center for Immigration Studies. All right, Andrew, give me a sense here about what's going on, because she is an acting DHS secretary. These Hondurans were supposed to be removed from the United States, and reportedly she gives them temporary reprieve against the wishes of the chief executive of the government, President Trump, through John Kelly.
Yeah, Honduras has been the beneficiary of what's called temporary protected status for almost 20 years. The State Department had cleared on the return of these individuals back to Honduras. There was no reason for them not to be returned, and yet Acting Secretary Duke decided to extend for another 6 months their presence in the United States, noting that they may be removed at the end of that period, but at the same time continuing it for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Well, and they were here and they get this protected status because of what? Because of a hurricane? Because of what is it? What's the reason?
The reason that they received temporary protected status initially was because of Hurricane Mitch, which took place in 1998.
What?
Since then, yeah.
What? 1998? What? Explain that to me. Okay, 1998 is a long time ago. Why would you still get protected status in the United States? Presumably, all these years later, you can return to your homeland. So it seems that John Kelly, through the president instructing him, okay, this has got to end now. We've spent money, we've taken care of you, now it's time to go home. So she is an Obama holdover, correct? The DHS acting secretary?
That's correct.
That's a problem, don't you think? That's a big problem.
It's just simply pushing the problem over to the plate of the incoming secretary, or hopefully incoming secretary, Kirstjen Nielsen, to make the decision, to make the tough decision 4 months before the midterm elections. And quite frankly, it just doesn't make sense. The time has come for this temporary status for these folks to end. The reasons that have been given over the last 18 years that they've been allowed to be here have been they've received too much rain, too little rain. There's been coffee rust.
Oh my gosh.
The reasons are just ridiculous.
Well, I've got to say that has to come to an end. But how about the Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security's tenure coming to an end? We need that to come to an end, because just like in the State Department, it's happening in the State Department as well. The president's mandate, his views, his policies are being thwarted by Obama holdovers or by career bureaucrats in the case of the State Department. And this is really thwarting the democracy, thwarting the election results. And I don't remember, and maybe you can fill me in, Andrew, I don't remember Obama having a lot of former Bush people in thwarting his will. Do you remember any circumstances where Bush holdovers were saying, no, we're just not going to do that. We're not going to do those policies?
I certainly don't remember that. And, you know, I can tell you that most of the people that staff these departments on a permanent basis are probably more in line with President Obama than they are with President Trump. And that might be a big part of the reason why you see a difference. But the Senate needs to get these folks confirmed, get the politicals into the positions where they can make these hard decisions.
The biting back of the swamp monsters. They're biting back. I appreciate it, Andrew. Thanks so much. And up next, Congress is seemingly in no hurry to get tax reform done, but they're happy to skip town early. We're going to hold them accountable. Up next.